This is what the charging port looks like for an iPad. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace it. This iPad 8th generation came to our workshop because it was not charging. In fact, as soon as we put the charger, we can see that it's a little bit wiggly and you cannot see any charging sign. When we take our voltmeter, we can notice that there's zero voltage coming in. In order to get started, of course, we are going to unplug our iPad and we are going to put this iPad onto a heating pad. The heating pad is set at 75 degrees Celsius, and that's an optimal temperature. That's an optimal temperature for this kind of tablets because it does not damage the LCD panel and soften the adhesive, and it's easier to open it. In order to open it, we are taking a suction cup and a playing card. We got this one from Mobile Centrics, and we start opening it up. Just be careful on one side when you open it because some of the flex cables for the digitizer and the screen are running, and if you pry too much in depth, you might risk to break it. Normally, we do not suggest the beginners and new technicians to use alcohol when dealing with LCD screens because it can damage the LCD screen, but we use just a little tiny drop on the tip of the playing card. There are 4 main screws, Phillips screws, that needs to be removed, and those will allow to lift up the LCD. These screws are hidden by a sort of film, so you just lift up the screen and remove the screw. Just make sure when you're removing the LCD to not pull too much because it's very easy to break. At this point in time, the iPad is still on, and the next step will be to unplug the battery. We do that by sliding a playing card underneath where this screw is, and that will unplug the battery, eliminating any chances of shorting the motherboard down. Now we can finally proceed with removing the LCD and the digitizer. Just make sure to not pull too much on those connectors because they are very fragile and they can break, and make sure to not pull the Touch ID flex, that's extremely sensitive. Now that we have everything removed, there are a bunch of more screws on the top part and the bottom part of the iPad that will allow us to remove the motherboard from the frame, and that way we can finally access the charging port. And this is what the motherboard looks like. As you can see, the charging port is a big flex that is just attached at the bottom part. It is soldered, so you do need some experience in micro soldering in order to remove it. As you can see, there are many contact points here, these golden little points, and those are directly connected to the lightning port at the bottom, and they tend to communicate with the motherboard and the charging port and the various IC chips. We always add flux. Flux usually helps with the oxidation of the pads and also allows heat transfer to be a little bit easier when it comes to micro soldering. The one that I use, I usually buy it from Mobile Centrics here in Canada, and does the job just wonderfully. Just make sure it's a MTech. That's the brand. The main brand is basically the Apple of flux. Next thing I do is to use a low melting solder, and I just pre-tint everything there. This low melting solder will help me to not use as much heat in order to remove the pads from the flex connector. Make sure to be in a well ventilated area, or if you have the equipment needed, you will be needing a sort of fan, suction fan, that removes all the bad odors and fumes that are like coming out from the flux and from the solder. Those are cancerogenous, so you have to be really careful because it's very helpful for your health. Isopropyl alcohol is what we use to clean and remove all the residue of flux. As you can see here, all the pads now are nicely tinted. We just have to make sure to clean it properly. No flux should be there, and no residue of the old solder should be there. We take our new flex charger, of course I bought this one from Centrix again. We put some flux and we pre-tinted with some solder, so it's easier to bound it onto the board. Again, flux onto the board, and we take our microscope to align it. This is what it looks like from the side view, and to align it there are a bunch of squares on each side. If you align the squares, you will be getting a perfect alignment. Once aligned, of course, you have to start soldering. I like to use a temperature of 320 degrees with my soldering iron. And it's very easy to melt and create a bond between the two pads. Once the operation is complete, of course, make sure to test if everything is working as it should. The best way to test it will be to connect a charger and use a voltmeter to see if it takes some charge. If it does, you're good. But if, like me, you do have a tester, I have something called a tri-star tester. When you use that, it will let you know if your charging port is working as it should. I did use it. Unfortunately, I did not get the video recorded. So now I'm just putting everything back together. You have to redo all the steps backwards in order to put it back. And that's pretty much it. Whenever we work on iPads, normally we use adhesives and we replace them with either OEM or aftermarket. In this case, unfortunately, we did not have it in stock, and we used a glue. The glue used is also water resistant, and we let the client know, of course, and he was okay with us using it. And we are done. That's how we replace the charging port, and it works as brand new. Thank you for sticking around. Like and subscribe if you like the video.